everyone. Welcome back to the Controversial Cinema Podcast. I'm Cosette.
I'm Liz.
And for this episode, we are going to be talking about Terrifier 1 through 3, because number 3 just came out. So.
Yeah, and as you can see, we have a little set dressing here. We went while we were at not the premiere, but it's the weekend premiere, Terrifier 3. There was a horror convention, had a table at the theater that we went to, and they had a VHS collector's edition of Terrifier 2. So I have a VHS player on my main TV, and then I have a little CRTV in my room, and I was like, okay, I need to have this. So, but yeah.
Yeah, well, like I said last night, if you had shown any doubt of buying that, I would have been like, no, buy the fucking VHS. Please do yourself that solid.
Yes. So for this episode, we're going to have a little bit of a format change because
we're talking about 3 movies.
It's a lot. Yeah. And so what we'll do is we will go over the IMDb summaries of all of the films, and if you're interested in watching any of them, please go do that. If not, we're going to go into much more detail of all of them, but we're going to speed run kind of through 1 and 2 to kind of get you up to date for 3, so you'll understand essentially.
We'll give our thoughts of all 3 at the endish because especially in my case, my thoughts about each movie are pretty drastically different. There's no, obviously I enjoy all of them, but I have different thoughts and different feelings about each one. Yes, bit of a longer episode. If you have not obviously caught up to, definitely Terrifier 3, because there will be spoilers for the new movie. So if you need to go back, find time to watch that and then come back and watch this episode.
Yes. Hey everybody, Liz here in the editing room with one last disclaimer. We realized that we were mispronouncing the director's name all throughout the episode, so anytime you hear us saying Damien Leone, it's Damien Leone. That's the correct pronunciation of his name, Leone. Replace that every time you hear it. Thank you.
So, starting out with Terrifier 1, that movie came out in 2016. Now, the writer-director for each Terrifier is the same, Damien Leone. He does the writing and directing for each Terrifier movie. It's an independent project of his. But Terrifier 1, the 2016, focuses on Art the Clown terrorizes a town known as Miles County, savagely attacking and terrifying anyone who has the unfortunate luck of encountering him. So this was the first full-length film featuring Art the Clown.
And then Terrifier 2 came out in 2022, which is really fun wordplay, but that summary is, after being resurrected by a sinister entity, Art the Clown returns to the timid town of Miles County, where he targets a teenage girl and her younger brother on Halloween night.
Yep. Which I think Terrifier 1 and Terrifier 2 both happen on Halloween night.
They do, yeah.
And Terrifier 3 is the first one to deviate from that. Which brings us to Art the Clown is set to unleash chaos on the unsuspecting residents of Miles County as they peacefully drift off to sleep on Christmas Eve. That's obviously Terrifier 3, and that came out here in the lovely year of 2024. Duh, because we're here today. And again, stars David Howard Thornton as Art the Clown. He has been Art the Clown since Terrifier 1. A different guy played him in All Hallows Eve, but that's been consistent. And then Lauren Lavera, who plays Sienna in Terrifier 2, also returned for her role in Terrifier 3 as well. These movies are so interesting. I remember when I first watched Terrifier 1, and it was during the pandemic.
Yeah, because we watched that together in our apartment.
We watched it together in our apartment. It was pandemic time, and it was streaming on Netflix, and I'd kind of heard about it, online and, certain spaces. So I think we were just kind of fuck it, let's see what this is about. And, back then I think it was a little, I'm not even going to necessarily call it mainstream, because, I don't know, would you consider even Terrifier mainstream now?
I would.
Okay.
I don't remember if the first Terrifier movie had a theatrical release.
I think it was.
That's usually how I kind of gauge if a film is mainstream. If it is being shown in theaters, that's kind of my litmus test, because it was still very, very low budget. It very much an indie movie still at that point. I think it was picking up popularity because Terrifier 2 was in production at that point, and it was halted because of the pandemic. So I think it was probably the general buzz from Terrifier 2, and so we were like, well, if that one's in production right now, we might as well watch the first one.
And like I said, it was lockdown, like, may as well. So, and I remember watching this, like, and I'd heard that Art the Clown was, like, kind of a crazy character, so that kind of drew me to the movie as well, and crazy is what you get. Absolutely. 100%. This makes you wonder, like, where did this movie come from? Like, very much, like, why? Especially, like, if you're here listening to the episode knowing kind of what happens, like, you're like, where did this carnage come from? I couldn't find anything, like, too personal about the director, but I think the main thing that you need to know, and something that I find just interesting and respect him for, is that Damien Leone is very much into practical effects and doing, like, special effects makeup and, like, gore things. And so with even going back to just All Hallows Eve, because I watched that movie before going and seeing Terrifier 3, one, because it was streaming and available, so why not? And two, I was like, okay, so this was, like, Terrifier was the first one to feature Art the Clown and talk about him, but All Hallows Eve is where he first basically came on screen. So what he wanted to do was, with All Hallows Eve, was show off what he could do with, one, a limited budget, which still carried on to Terrifier 1, because he didn't have a big budget at all, and just showing off, like, what he was able to achieve and what he could do, so therefore he could go on and make bigger movies. And for the first Terrifier movie, he directed, he wrote, he produced, he edited, and did all the special effects makeup for that movie, which I think is a lot of work.
It is.
Looking at the media arts major, that's a lot of work.
It is, yeah. Watching the evolution of the Terrifier franchise is so satisfying as a media arts, like, degree person, because you can see how much money makes a difference when making films, because Terrifier 1 is very low budget. The way you can always tell is the lighting in a film. Mm-hmm. And Terrifier 1 is very grungy. There's not a whole lot that they do with lighting,
which I kind of like. Like, it's a vibe in and of itself.
For sure.
But a very
100%.
Specific place of yes. Vibe.
Mm-hmm. And then Terrifier 2, like, it got bumped the hell up with the amount of production quality that it had. Like, the level of cinematography that was in Terrifier 2 in comparison to the first one, out of this world. And then Terrifier 3 is just a beautiful, like, it's so pretty.
Yeah. Very, very pretty. You could just tell, like, with each movie, they just get that little bit more budget to, like, make it look a little cleaner.
More polished.
Yeah, more polished.
More immersive in the world that Damien Leone is building.
Right. Because Terrifier 1 still kind of has this, because of the dirty, grungy vibe, which I'm like, hell yes, I love that, like, grindhouse, horror-looking thing. It's still very much still piggybacking off of All Hallows Eve, which is also, like, it doesn't have a lot of lighting, the cinematography isn't, like, the best, very grungy. Like, you're literally, it's like, because in All Hallows Eve, they watch a VHS, it's literally like you're watching a VHS of a VHS with the way it looks. Obviously, taking in all these special effects and everything that Damien Leone likes, he is greatly inspired by the likes of, like, Tom Savini, who does a lot of special effects in a lot of, like, slasher franchises, which apparently he actually had a cameo in Terrifier 3. Missed that because I don't know what he looks like. And then, obviously, he also is inspired by Martin Scorsese, so I think that kind of goes without saying.
He was the dude getting interviewed at the mall.
Oh, okay.
I kind of thought that was him. I was like, okay, that scene lasted a little longer than I probably thought it should have, so that makes sense.
Okay. It's because apparently he was very excited to have Tom Savini in his movie. So, and Liz also has a fun fact about Leon that she liked.
Oh. You know, it's kind of funny that you can't really find out too much about him because this man is an Aquarius. I only point this out because his birthday is literally a day before mine. So his birthday is the 29th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So shout out to all of the Aquarians out there and the Pisces. We're representing both here.
If you're on YouTube, you just saw the look I gave of that one. So, and basically, as we've kind of already touched on, why did he want to make these movies? Well, especially for Terrifier 1, coming off of him making All Hallows Eve, it was to further showcase that he could make a longer, more feature-length film with this character, Art the Clown, that people online had started to like from those who had known All Hallows Eve, and to further showcase his special effects abilities in the makeup and just creating like the body images and bodies being torn up and stuff. I did read one interview where one of Leon's goals for maybe not even the Terrifier franchise in general, but like his general goal is that he wants to be able to create a beheading with no takes and like no shots.
Or like one continuous
shot. like one continuous shot of a beheading. Like he wants to be able to create that with special effects. Obviously, he hasn't figured out quite how to do that yet.
Practical.
But,
I think we've been saying it's practical.
Yeah,
effects.
the practical effects.
Yeah. I'm sitting over here really trying to map out how you would do that now.
I know.
I feel like he maybe needs to connect with some magicians and be like, you know what, y'all do a lot of like
how do you do that?
Practical effects and visual trickery. What's your take on this? Like, what sleight of hand? But okay, interesting. I didn't know that.
Right. Yeah. I thought that was pretty interesting. And another goal that he had for making Terrifier 1 was that he wanted to evoke more of a feeling of like kind of bringing back that 70s like grindhouse style horror into Terrifier 1, and he was less focused on Terrifier 1 for the characters in the storyline. It was mostly just about the feeling and showcasing what he could do. Terrifier 2. All right, so Liz, what is Terrifier 1 about? Because we gave the IMDb summary in case you were interested, so you go back and watch it. Now this is us talking about it.
Yes. If you want to go watch it now. We're going to go in depth here, so spoilers afoot. So Terrifier 1, in the briefest summary, is about two friends coming home from a Halloween party, and they're just trying to get home. And then they cross paths with Art the Clown, Tara, and the blonde girl. So inconsequential name. They see Art the Clown, they're weirded out. This blonde bitch instigating that Art the Clown and Tara should like get together, and she's like, my friend thinks you're cute, like, you know, just being the worst possible friend ever. They have this little moment and then he disappears.
Yeah, that's it.
And then they're like, well, I'm too intoxicated to drive right now, so let's go get some food, and by the time we have food, like, I'll be fine to drive.
Yep.
So then we cut to the diner.
Because a good pizza always helps you sober up. You know what I'm saying? All those oils and all that bread. So yeah, you're in the diner. The two friends are getting their pizza, and it's like the most New York thing I've ever seen in my life. And then Art the Clown comes in, and he sits at a table kind of like adjacent from them, and he starts out by mean mugging them, and then he just goes, because he's sitting like this hunched over for those who are watching the video, and then he goes,
just smiles like a wacko.
Like a little wacko. And I'm like, bitch, I would leave. Or go lock myself in the bathroom. Like, because at that point, I don't know if walking out on the street would be the safest option, but blonde girl, again, is antagonizing the situation, and she's like, I'm gonna take a picture, and then, like, drunkenly goes over to Art and, like, sits on his lap, and is taking the drunken selfie while he's mean mugging.
Yeah.
So she takes the picture, she, like, taps him on the nose and goes, thanks. And I'm like, girl, stop. You are about to die.
I have never been such a bold person, so I have no idea what it's like to be that comfortable to invade someone's personal space like that.
Even drunk, dude. Even drunk. Like, Art then first he goes, like, over to their table and, like, tries being funny and, like, puts a quarter in, like, the little machine and gets a ring out for Tara and, like, puts the little plastic toy ring on her finger. And the friend is like, oh my god, that's so cute! And Tara's like, this man's a freak! Then, he goes into the bathroom. So, friends resume conversation, and in the middle of that was scary.
Snuck up on you.
Yeah. And in the middle of that, you hear the the guy who owns the pizza place, like, start yelling. And basically what you gather from the yelling of the conversation is that Art took his feces and drew on the wall, which it does a brief flash into the bathroom. It's nasty.
It's not even that he drew it on the wall, and I don't even know if it was just shit that he had in there, because it looked bloody.
He
it was
blew that
all
toilet
up in the toilet.
Art the Clown gets kicked out of the pizza place, does some little funny gestures at the dude through the door, and then just walks off. Quick note, and this is kind of consistent throughout all the movies, so I guess it's a running joke. Art the Clown carries around this big-ass trash bag that you can only guess is not full of good things. And I don't know why people keep giving him back the bag. They'll throw it at him and go, take your shit. And I'm like, does there not somewhere in your brain that says, okay, this weird-ass man is carrying around this weird-ass bag. Maybe I should just kick him out and then not let him have it anymore. Tara and blonde friend leave the pizza restaurant.
They got a flat tire.
They got a flat tire, and they're like, oh, shit. And Tara's like, all right, well, look, I'll call my sister, and she'll come pick us up. While they're in the car waiting, Tara's like, I gotta pee. But he sees this janitor standing outside of, like, this creepy-ass building. She's like, I'm gonna go ask that man. I'm like, why would you do that? Piss on the street. Find a water bottle in your friend's car to piss it. Do something else, okay? But anyway, so he takes her to the bathroom, and just to speed along the events a little bit, while Tara's in the bathroom, it flashes to the car scene, and the drunk blonde friend is, like, taking, like, little cutesy pictures of herself. She heard her car door open and close, so I guess she just starts talking, and then she turns her head, and Art the Clown's just sitting there looking at her very menacingly, and so, yeah, she gets her shit rocked. So, goes back to Tara inside the building. She encounters this presumably homeless lady, and she's like, oh, the new tenant is here. And I'm gonna tell you what, but I don't know why Tara didn't just go, no bitch, and then leave. Instead, she, like, kind of plays along. The homeless lady's, like, has something in her arms, and she's like, look, this is my daughter, Emily. Say hi to the nice new tenant lady. And it's a doll. It's not a real baby.
I do note that is a real disorder, but it is so unnerving this film.
It is. And Tara, again, doesn't just go, no, bitch. She's just like, well, okay, well, since I just moved in, like, I gotta go finish moving. Why are we entertaining this conversation at all?
Well, she was probably trying to de-escalate any situation and be like, bye-bye.
Like, okay, goodbye. So, it was a smooth exit. She basically ends up trying to get out and ends up encountering Art the Clown. I think this is when she catches him with, like, a scalpel in his hand, and he's just standing there, like, with a surprised look on his face. They end up in a cat and mouse game. She gets caught.
That's when she ends up in the chair,
yeah,
right?
Cuts to the scene where she's tied to the chair.
And this is where we get the very first
big kill of the movie.
Yes. If there is anything that people are going to allude to from Terrifier 1, it is this scene right here. Because if there is anything that the Terrifier series is known for, it is for its creative kills.
Yep.
So she finds her poor blonde friend strung up by her ankles, and Art the Clown has a chainsaw, right? It is a chainsaw.
It's a hacksaw.
That's right. In my mind, I always think it's a chainsaw, but yeah, he has a hacksaw. And, she's spread eagle over there, and
very good.
The worst thing that you can possibly imagine happens, and yes, she gets sawed in half the entire way down.
Again, if you're watching the video, you've probably seen me, like, physically making faces, and it's because I'll touch on this more again in thoughts, but this, to me, in my opinion, this is the worst kill for me. And I don't know if it's because I'm a woman and I know what it feels like down there, and I can only imagine how much that shit hurt. and wasn't pleasant.
The Terrifier franchise is so successful with its kills because you're there from beginning to end.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a lot of cutting or alluding to how long the process of the people being murdered is because you're there throughout the entire thing. You see everything.
That is kind of what you're in for. And you expect that, you know it, especially once you've seen Terrifier 1, like, it don't change much after that. Tara is still stuck to the chair. And Art decides to tease her a little bit with, like, this little, it's like some kind of mallet. It might have been a hammer, but he basically acts like he's gonna hit her in the head, and Tara just keeps flinching away from him. But anyway, Art the Clown gets distracted from Tara, ends up hearing noise outside. It's Tara's sister, Vicky, who has shown up to come pick them up, and I guess she saw the car, saw that it was empty, and was like,
where the fuck are you?
Yeah, where the fuck are you guys? Tara ends up escaping, which ends up kind of ensuing in, like, another cat and mouse game. To fast track that a little bit, Tara ends up going bye-bye.
Yes. So she ends up getting shot multiple times as she's trying to escape. Yeah. Art the Clown has a moment with the homeless lady.
Yes.
And then Vicky is already in the house, and she wanders in, and she sees this strange silhouette, like, body on the ground, and so she goes to investigate what's going on, and then she sees in the background, it's the homeless lady, and she's been, like, her tits have been cut off, and...
It's so funny. It's so fucked up.
It's so horrible. And then as she realizes that she is in the wrong fucking place, she needs to leave, she turns back around to leave, and then Art the Clown rolls over, and he is wearing this homeless lady's just the stretch of skin that he cut off. So he's wearing essentially
her
prosthetic
hair.
prosthetic
Hair.
titties that
Art the Clown sees Vicky. I mean, she's there, so now she's gonna have to die. It's pretty much how it goes.
Yeah, so he goes and chases her. The long and short of it is she gets out of the building, but she does not live after she exits the building. I think he runs her over with the truck.
Yeah, because he ends up, like, hitting her.
Mm-hmm. And then he starts eating her face.
Yep.
And as he's eating her face, the police finally show up, and they're like, put your hands in the air. Art the Clown is like, no, fuck you. And he ends up shooting himself.
Basically, the police discover that Victoria is still alive. Barely, but she is alive. And so they obviously rush her to the hospital, do what they need to do with that. And Art's body is taken to the morgue, where, ooh, spooky, Art reanimates as the medical examiner is about to start doing his medical examiner things, and he kills the medical examiner. So this is where you first get that little hint of, like, supernatural elements.
And then that leads directly into Terrifier 2, because it picks up exactly where 1 leaves off.
Yeah, so Terrifier 2, we're gonna do our best to summarize this movie.
There's a lot that happens.
Yeah.
People complained about Terrifier 1, not a lot going on in it, and there is so much that happens in Terrifier 2.
There's a lot of ground to cover, so we are gonna definitely, like, cliff notes this one, because it's just a lot. It's the longest Terrifier movie with the longest runtime. Terrifier 2 introduces the new character of Sienna Shaw and her brother Jonathan and her mom. Jonathan, the little brother, is obsessed with Art the Clown. He's obsessed with him, and, you know, the mom and Sienna are like, LOL, you're just a little freak, stop it. And Sienna is a lovely little artsy girl who loves to create, you know, costumes, and she likes to draw, and so you know that Halloween is approaching, and so she's getting her costume ready, which is a drawing that was actually based off of something her dad created for her. It's like this Valkyrie woman type character that's pretty cool. And this is also where you're introduced to another clown character, but this time it's a little girl that is with Art. So the first scene that you see of Art after he kills the medical examiner, because it kind of picks up there, is he's going to a laundromat to clean his bloody clothes. And when he's at the laundromat, there's just like a regular dude sitting there, you know, as one does at the laundromat. And then there's a little girl who's a little like mini looking clown thing. They like, she and Art end up having this back and forth. And then she like pisses blood or something. Like it's just a weird black substance on the floor.
And so she just kind of becomes his little sidekick,
yeah, his little
for
sidekick
the movie.
for the movie. He ends up killing the poor dude in the laundromat. This is telling the movie, hey, the Miles County Clown is back and he is in action.
And he's not actually dead.
Yep, he's not actually dead. Whoopsie. Because there's like there's a bunch of intrigue around like Sienna's dad, and like they talk about how he had mental health issues and how
he was really, really obsessed with the Miles County Clown killings, and that bleeds into the son's interest too. Is not only is he interested in the serial killers, but it's also, why was my dad so interested in this? What was he onto from this obsession? This movie deals with a lot of background story with Sienna and kind of her teenage relationships with her friends.
Another blonde bitch is in this movie.
Shit, I forgot that she was blonde.
I have to say that. There's two friends, and one of them's another blonde bitch, so we gotta have her gratuitous.
To be fair, this one, like, God, she just wants Sienna to have a nice time. She knows that her friend is so depressed, and she's just like, you just need to let loose. You just need to have some fun. Like, please. I know you miss your dad, but you gotta stop like huddling up and having all of these anxiety attacks.
Yeah. So basically the friend group is like, oh, we'll come out and like do something fun for Halloween. The first scene you get between Sienna and Art the Clown is actually in a dream sequence that Sienna is having, and this is the famous like clown cafe where they sing a little cute song, and it's like all these teenagers on like, it almost looks like a set on a children's TV show, but instead of like little kids, it's like teenagers. They end up singing about Art the Clown in the clown cafe, and of course that ends up in like Art killing everybody else and setting people on fire. And Sienna ends up having to fight him in her dream. And because there's fire in her dream, there ends up being a fire in her room, and that's what wakes her up. It ends up burning part of her Halloween costume. So she ends up Sienna has to go to a Halloween store because she doesn't have enough time to remake a set of angel wings. She goes with her, I think it's the dark-headed friend. I don't remember.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the blonde friend goes. And this is the first time that she encounters Art the Clown in real life. So here she was thinking that the Miles County Clown was kind of like a urban legend in a way, and turns out he's real. And he ends up doing little goofy, silly things in the Halloween store, which is, to date, one of my favorite Terrifier scenes in general, just because of how entertaining it is. Art ends up killing the poor Halloween worker, and the Halloween store worker, and I liked him. He was a cool dude. So I was very sad about that. They get the costume, and Sienna and the blonde friend end up going to like a party, while the other girl,
she stays at home for some reason.
Yeah, well, I think she's supposed to meet them later, but she's at home first, giving out Halloween candy to kids. Art the Clown ends up showing up at the friend's house, and he's like holding out his giant trash bag, because yes, it's back again this time, motioning like, give me candy. And she's like, oh, like, I'm sorry, sir, like, you're a little too old to be trick-or-treating. I can't give you any candy, which I'm like, bro, just give the fucking man some candy, especially since he keeps like shoving
the bag in your face.
Yeah, and like he looks scary, y'all. Like he's not a normal looking person. And so the fact that she didn't just go, oh, whatever. So she ends up like closing the door in his face, and then, she's like, oh my God, whatever. And I think he ends up knocking on the door again, or ringing the doorbell, one of those. And so she goes back. He's still there. And she's like, oh my God, fine. Here's the fucking candy. And she throws the candy in the bag. And then she sees into the trash bag, which is a bunch of bloody murder tools.
It was at that moment that she realized she fucked up.
Yeah, she knew she fucked up. And she's at home alone. And she's upstairs. And it kind of shows her starting to get ready to put on her Halloween costume and all that. And, she hears noises downstairs. She saw the back door open and was like, oh shit. And so I think what she did was she ran back upstairs to, I guess, try to hide in her bedroom or something, but Art was already there. This is the kill scene that a lot of people talk a lot about because it is intense, I will say. He's like breaking her legs, tearing her limbs apart. I mean, he's fucking this girl up. And then to add insult to injury, he like takes salt and like
Literally salt in the wounds.
Yeah, literally has salt in her wounds, and she's like screaming in agony because it hurts so bad. And I mean, it's intense, and it goes on for a little while. It cuts to where the mom has come home, and she's
calling out for her daughter.
Yeah, because she's like, you're
answering.
not. Yeah, and she's not like handing out the candy like she's supposed to be, and blah blah. So she goes up to the girl's room, and the girl is still alive somehow, and Art has her propped up on the bed. And he, like, uses her broken hand to, like, wave at the mom. It's so fucked up. And she's just like, Mom, help me, help. Which I'm like, girl, I'm sorry, you're not recovering from that. And you cut back to Sienna and her friend at the party where you find out that the friend gives Sienna Molly, which is not good.
No, and the way it happens too is like Sienna is having such a nice time. She feels like so bubbly and into the party, and she's talking with her friend, and it slips that her friend gave her Molly, and she like immediately after that she's like, why would you do that? Like, because I think the other point is she doesn't want to mix things with like her anti-anxiety medication. And then to make matters worse, she then gets a call from her little brother while they're at this party. And from what I remember, he's asking for her to come get him.
Because there's also another scene with Sienna and Jonathan's mom where she ends up being victimized by Art as well. And this one's kind of funny because, like, she was apparently making, like, food, and he ends up stuffing mashed potatoes in this hole in her face. Again, there's a lot that happened in this movie, y'all. It's a lot to cover.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, basically the mom ends up getting killed as well. And Jonathan catches Art shoving mashed potatoes in the mom's face. And so Jonathan ends up running. Yeah. So that leads into the phone call where he's like, help me, Sienna, help me.
So I don't remember how exactly she convinces her friends to drive her to this carnival, but they do. And they drop her off.
You know, Sienna's talking on the phone again with Jonathan, and she's like, where are you? And he's like, oh, I'm at the Terrifier, which is a carnival ride / haunted house thing. I couldn't really...
It's like a house of mirrors almost, because it's something that you walk through. I can't remember what they're called at fairs.
It's like a fun house.
Yes.
So she gets to the Terrifier, and she's like trying to find Jonathan. And then eventually finds out that her friend has also been fucked up by Art the Clown a good bit in many ways. Sienna ends up getting fucked up a little bit as well. Again, kind of cat and mouse game ensues, much in the same idea as like Terrifier 1. And then she eventually ends up linking up with Jonathan. They end up running into each other. So she is now reunited with her brother, but they still have to survive Art the Clown and the little clown girl thing. Art brings out like this, I think in the vein of like a cat o' nine tails whip, but it's made with a bunch of sharp objects. She ends up getting it away from Art, I think, by like taking her arm and having it wrap around her arm somehow. Sienna has a knife to go with it, so she fights off Art with it. She finds out that it can damage him, but then eventually he actually ends up stabbing her with it, to when she then drops into this hole in the ground. Y'all, it's wild. It gets really wild from here. She ends up going into like one of those water tanks, and she can see the Clown Cafe happen all over again with the song and everything. The knife somehow has magical powers. Y'all, it sounds like I'm talking about a drug-induced state whenever I'm describing this, but it ends up bringing her back to life and healing like her stomach wound, and she ends up getting out of the glass tank and taking on Art one final time, where she decapitates the motherfucker, and he is seemingly dead. And I mean, that's basically the end of Terrifier 2.
The little demon girl is able to get away because she's still at large. And the thing with Sienna's sword is that it is another part of her dad's comic book writing. There's this huge point of like Sienna being quote unquote kind of like a chosen one to get rid of Art the Clown and whatever this little demon bitch is like, and that's how she gets the sword, you know. And yeah, I enjoyed Terrifier 2, but as a story, you can never please everybody, because like you have Terrifier 1 where people feel like Leon didn't do enough, and then Terrifier 2 is like, all right, we're gonna throw everything at you.
Yeah. And the thing about Terrifier 2 is it's info dumping, but it's info dumping questions, in my opinion, which we'll get to. Heavy spoilers, because this is obviously the brand new movie. Again, if you've listened this long and you haven't seen Terrifier 3, stop. Go back. Do not collect $200.
Do not pass go.
Do not pass go, because this is it, baby. So, Terrifier 3, obviously set on Christmas.
This has a wild opening sequence.
Yes.
I mean, it's so like, I kind of view this trilogy thus far kind of like the Human Centipede, kind of, where like the first one is pretty like, the Human Centipede was good, but then number 2 is very, very intensive. And then number 3, just fun camp gore all out. So this film starts off playing on that Christmas sequence where we're following this family getting ready for bed. It's Christmas Eve. The mother is woken up by the daughter, who hears something on the roof. She's like, there's something on the roof. And the mom's just like, oh, like, it's just the house settling. Go back to sleep. The daughter is like, I will go to bed only if you leave cookies and milk for Santa Claus. The daughter goes to bed. The mother goes downstairs to make cookies. And then she finds out, after hearing a thud on the roof as well, that their front door is open. And she goes back into her bedroom where her husband is sleeping and is like, hey, maybe you should care a little bit about the safety of your family because the door is open. And he's like, I have to wake up in 3 hours. Can you not right now? We can tell that they have a great dynamic. The little daughter goes downstairs and she sees that she thinks it's Santa. It's not. She
runs to hide. Yes, yeah. She runs to hide. Art ends up going upstairs and goes into the brother's room because they do have a son. All you hear is like swinging and squelching. A lot of the hype around Terrifier 3 was like, oh my god, are we killing kids? Spoiler alert, yes, we're killing kids, but
you don't see them.
You don't see it. It's not like watching the adults and the older people get like brutally taken apart by Art the Clown. It's never on screen, but it is implied. And you do see the aftermath of it, because eventually the wife gets back in bed and discovers that her husband has been hacked to pieces by Art. She runs into the son's bedroom and sees like basically his dismembered body kind of like everywhere.
The mom tries to fight back so bad, but she makes it downstairs. She can't get out because she locked the door because she was trying to be safe. And by the time she makes it to the living room, Art is just hacking and slashing at her. He cuts off her arm and eventually just chops her like in the head. All the while, we don't see the little girl. We don't see the little girl at this point, and Art the Clown thinks that he's gotten everybody. And so he's next shown in the kitchen eating these really, really hard cookies that were intended for Santa. And God bless, unfortunately, he hears a little nudge in the kitchen and he goes, oh, there's still somebody here. This little girl hid herself in a bottom cabinet, and that was such a good place to hide.
She had the right idea for sure.
She did. It was not for a lack of trying. Like, she was this close to living, but Art is shown like smiling at her once he sees her, and then you don't see her get killed, but it's implied that she's a goner at this point. So, and that's the opening sequence.
Yeah, so that's the opening sequence to set you up, and then it says
3 years.
5 years.
5 years ago, yeah.
5 years prior
The movie flashes back to the very end of Terrifier 2.
Yeah. So you know that 5 years have taken span between then and now. Sienna is now getting out of the mental hospital.
No.
No?
That's when we get our first flashback to what Art and the demon were up to after Terrifier 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it flashes back to the night where Sienna decapitated him. And we're at the mental institution.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this was an after credit scene in Terrifier 2. So piggybacking off of that after credit scene of Terrifier 2, which make sure you watch that whenever you go watch the movie. Art and his decapitated head. Okay, so he's just a body and his head are separate. Okay, so you find out in the after credit scene of Terrifier 2 that Vicky, the girl that survived in Terrifier 1, is now a possessed demon thing, whatever, and she births Art's head in the after credit scene in Terrifier 2. So then you're picking up the security guard in the mental institution, going to like check out the noise, and he finds out that the other nurse got her face chewed off by Art's birth head, and he is then attacked by Art's body, which previously attacked a policeman that found him at the scene, and Vicky ends up helping Art finish off the security guard as well. Art gets his head back on, and then they go to
this abandoned ass house. Yeah.
Take the subway to the abandoned ass house where I guess their headquarters are. You see Vicky get into a tub with a piece of glass because she like punches a mirror because she's like, I'm ugly now.
Yeah, she's like, you used to be so hot.
Yeah, she was like, Vicky, you were so hot and now nobody's gonna fuck you, which I'm like, why are you worried about that? But okay. It was giving Deadite vibes from Evil Dead. So Vicky slits her wrists open.
I originally thought I wasn't going to be able to watch that because I remember how horrible it was in 13 Reasons Why. And
yeah,
I will
say, context though.
I feel like it was not as gory as it was in 13 Reasons Why. Like maybe it's because she was already kind of marred, but the way the wrist slitting was shot, for some reason it was just an easier, like maybe it's because she didn't look like she was registering the pain or something, but like even just the way that it was shot, it just didn't look, it didn't translate the way that it had previously in there. But yeah, so
and then Art's just in a rocking chair the entire time while Vicky just sits there in this nasty ass looking, like worse than the tub from Saw 1, y'all. Okay, nasty ass tub just bleeding out.
Yes, then we get the flashback to present day.
Yeah, then you go forward. And Sienna's now getting out of a mental institution, but obviously a nicer one than the one Vicky was in, yay. And she's getting picked up by her uncle, and she's gonna go stay with them. Her uncle and her aunt have a daughter that's like obsessed with Sienna and just think that she hangs the moon, and so that's like a really cute dynamic, because you don't see Jonathan for a little while, Sienna's little brother in this movie, because he's at college, and he has a roommate who has like a girlfriend who's obsessed with true crime,
and of course she has a true crime podcast,
and she has a true crime,
and I swear, I'm sure she liked that blonde roommate. Oh, and she herself is blonde. What? Okay, Damien Leone has beef with blondes, and I get that it's an easy target, but okay, this is 3 times now.
Yeah.
Of course, this true crime podcaster is obsessed with Jonathan and Sienna's case.
Yep.
And she like uses the roommate as a ploy
to get to closer. Jonathan. And basically it's just the commentary on like preying off of people's horrific experiences, and so she's trying to get Jonathan to come on her show and tell his story, and you can tell Jonathan's not like excited at the idea, but he was like, yeah, whatever, I'll think about it. The whole thing is that Sienna is trying to reconnect with her brother and everything like that, so she and Gabby, her niece, end up going to the mall. And again, you got to go back again to catch up.
We find these like demolition guys back at that abandoned house. because they're gonna tear that shit down. It's not inhabitable. So they walk through the building, inspecting, making sure that there's nobody there. And the younger guy takes upstairs, and the older guy goes into the downstairs basement area. And the older guy finds Vicky in the tub. And why this man? I understand taking out your phone to get evidence, but why did you have to get so close to her?
Yeah, he like ends up getting like all up in her fucking face and her grill. And even though he probably thinks it's some dead body, that's still weird behavior. So of
you
course
don't need to get that close.
she ends up reanimating back to life, and she still is holding like the piece of glass. So she ends up like, I think
stabbing him in the neck.
Yeah, stabbing him in the neck, which is pretty much insta death if you hit the jugular. And she takes him out. Then it goes to upstairs with the younger guy, and all you see, which is such a cool fucking shot, oh my god, but you see Art is still in the rocking chair, but and he has like cobwebs on him to show like how long he has sat there. So it's kind of interesting because it shows like these demon things, whatever the fuck, are dormant. Like they have a dormant period. And then eventually Art moves, and he starts immediately fucking the guy up. This was another pretty brutal scene. He ends up like scalping him.
This is also a common theme for Leone. He for some reason really likes doing that to people in films, and I'm like, all right, that's a little strange.
Okay. And he basically ends up ripping his skin off in that fashion. And Vicky's there doing weird things that we're not even gonna mention here. Just watch it for yourself. So
you fucked up for that.
so now you know Art is back. He goes out. And you see, like, these people inside a bar, and one of them's dressed as Santa, and Art passes by the window, and he's like, oh my god, and he's, like, so excited that there's a Santa.
He's literally Buddy the Elf in that moment, seeing Santa in the mall and losing his shit.
Even though they think he's a little weird, they're like, whatever, just entertain him, and whatever, so Art ends up, like, hanging out with the dudes for a little bit, and then they end up like buying him a shot, and Art like doesn't like it, so he spits it on Santa, and then he ends up peeing on Santa's lap, and so obviously they're like, bro, what the fuck, man? So at that point they're getting ready to kick him out.
The bartender is trying to keep things civil, and he eventually gets in between Art the Clown and the Santa Claus person, even though he's trying to make sure that he leaves the establishment. Well, by the time the bartender turns around to deal with Art, somehow Art had a gun in his bag of horrors.
Because again, they gave him the bag back.
And he shoots the bartender. The friend that was with Santa tries to, run up at him. Art shoots him too. And then now Santa Claus is groveling for his life, being like, please don't get me. Art knocks him out, and when he comes to, he is strapped up in this chair, and oh god. Art, earlier in the movie when he and Vicky were at the house, was shown experimenting with liquid nitrogen, and he decides to use it on Mr. Santa Claus, and he first freezes Santa Claus's legs, his bottom area, and he's got like this ice pick looking thing, and he just starts hacking at the frozen bits of his leg. He kind of works his way up. First it's the bottom area, then it's the hands, horrible, and then last but not least, it's his face. And Art also decides to take this man's beard and fold it in half and just take it for himself for later. There was one shot during this whenever he, I think, was picking out his the Santa Claus's hands, because the skin was really frosted from the liquid nitrogen and how dark the blood was. I was like, I don't know if I can look at jelly-filled donuts the same ever again. Because that's what it was giving. It was like hard jelly donut with the... Oh
my god, interesting. Okay. Basically, it ends up them flashing back to the mall where Sienna and her niece, Gabby, are Christmas shopping, and she's trying to find something for Jonathan. And, at this point, it's pretty much implied that Sienna is struggling mental health wise since her encounter with Art the Clown. She's on meds. She has to determine what's real and what's not real. Has still like a bunch of hallucinations still. And she ends up seeing this guy walk by the front of the store in a Santa suit with a Santa mask on. But you can tell, like, that the person is Art the Clown, because you can see, like, his bloody gloves with his fingers. And she knows, like, she feels the presence that this is Art the Clown. The niece is like Gabby's like, so, like, are you okay? Like, what's wrong? And Sienna's like, we just gotta go. She was like, we gotta go.
And that's when it cuts to Vicky.
That is not correct. According to the encyclopedia, girl, it was Sienna going to visit Jonathan anyways.
Going to her brother's college and meeting up with him is right after this mall scene. It's under the guise of her wanting to see how he's been, but whenever she was in the mental institution, or the rehabilitation center rather, apparently he would write letters to her every single week, and so many of them were talking about like his theories of the demon girl, because they still didn't know where she was, and how he really thought that they needed to kill her so that the Miles County Clown wouldn't come back again. But then eventually his letters stopped, and once Sienna is talking with him in person, he's kind of taken the approach of like, it happened so long ago, we need to let it go, like, no one's gonna come after us, like, it's fine.
At the mall, Art ends up being the mall Santa for a little bit, because the real mall Santa's like off taking a lunch break, and then he ends up being Santa. And this was so fucking weird, because none of these kids had any like stop in their brain and be like, yo, this man looks weird. But they end up seeing that he's giving out toys to this other kid, and they're all like, we want toys. So as the mall elves are being like, that's not our Santa, guys. So security ends up being like, go, you gotta get out of here, you gotta get out of here. The bag that Art was carrying, instead of the regular trash bag, it's like a red bag now. It just gives this one shot of this one boy like tearing open a gift, and it ends up being a bomb. So he blows up everybody in the area.
If you thought that something like that would make news, it sure does. We'll come back to that. And it confirms Sienna's bad vibes that, yeah, Art the Clown is in fact back, and we're so back, better than ever. Like, while she is still visiting with Jonathan, the true crime podcast girl is like, I would love to have you on, and like, people would love to hear from you and see how you're doing, how you're coping. And Sienna really doesn't appreciate that, and she has this moment where she's like, do the people want to know about how like I still see images of my dead friends telling me that like it's my fault that they're dead, and that like I'm living in fear.
So you can tell that Sienna and Jonathan are like taking different roads to like healing, I guess I'll use the word, and to handling this trauma, because Sienna is very much like wanting to talk to Jonathan about this stuff, and he's very avoidant. And Sienna is wanting to talk to Jonathan because he's the only one that gets it. He was the only one that's alive now that was there to get it. And so she ends up leaving, going back to the house, whatever. That's when Sienna goes back to the house and seeing the news of
the explosion that happened at the mall. This really reaffirms her worst fears, that, because I don't even know if this took place in the same mall. Maybe it's inferred that it did. But, it reaffirms her hallucination that she saw. And maybe it wasn't a hallucination at that point. Mm-hmm. And she freaks the fuck out. The wife gives something for Sienna to sleep, because she's still really, really worked up. Gabby is also, sent to bed. And we have this moment between the wife and the husband where
he tried to like be like, I don't think she's ready to be out in society again. And then after Sienna has that breakdown, the aunt is then like, I should have listened to you. And he's like, I'm gonna go pick up Jonathan, we'll talk about this later. We're now getting into the third act of the movie.
Yes.
So she dreams of
her dad.
Yeah, because there were like a couple of flashback sequences where she makes a comment to her dad, and it's, you know, she's a child, and she's like, you always draw like boy superheroes, you never draw like girl superheroes. And he ends up being like, oh, well, you know what, I did create something for you. And it shows like the Valkyrie that she was designing her Halloween costume after in Terrifier 2. And in the dream / flashback sequence, you see him like handing young Sienna the picture, and there's also like these noises behind like a door, and she's like, Daddy, what is that? And he ends up like just shaking and staring at her like really menacingly. Does he say something to her?
He doesn't say anything to her, but she is like, let it go, you know, towards the picture. There's a flashback sequence where it's flashing back to when she was in the tank at the very end of Terrifier 2. Eventually, there's a loud clang, and she's woken up from that dream sequence. And I thought it was so funny when she woke up right at 1:59 a.m. I'm like, okay, witching hour. Yeah, she ends up waking up and going downstairs to investigate what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I think she notices that either the door is open or something, but she turns the corner and finds Art the Clown in her house with her like adopted kind of by marriage uncle strung up on the wall, beheaded, disemboweled. Art is just kind of playing with his insides at that point.
Then the mom, the aunt, is tied to a chair, and Sienna ends up getting tied to the chair as well. And they basically end up just fucking with her. Like, every time Art walks by her, he, like, hits her in the back of the head, which should not be as funny as it was, but it is. The mom is screaming, like, where's my daughter? Where's Gabby? And then they, because there's this, like, little table stand thing in the middle in between Sienna and the aunt, and it's wrapped up in Christmas paper. And so Vicky, because she's also there with Art, ends up unwrapping the thing, and it's, like, a decapitated head inside a bird cage with rats eating it.
And while the mother is still alive, this is the thing. We haven't seen where Gabby is this entire section. Yeah. And so Vicky is like, there's your daughter. You don't recognize your own flesh and blood. And the mom loses it.
Well, also saying that's not my daughter, which I was like, she's probably right.
I feel really bad for what happened to the mom because her death sequence was horrible. They got this like glass cylinder thing. They end up like pounding it into her jaw.
And like down her mouth, right? So it's
like a direct line into the esophagus and stomach. They take the rats and they put them in the cylinder, and then they use fire to coax them into her mouth, and then
they do like 2 or 3 rats too. Like it's a few rats.
Mm-hmm. And then once they're in there, you can see them moving around in her throat. And then Vicky, this bitch, takes a knife, slits open the mom's throat, and then the rats just re-exit it. And it is so nasty. It's so fucking nasty. So yeah, the mom at this point, toast.
She was cooked from the moment she was tied to the chair. Sienna is of course screaming and blah blah blah. She's like, I'm gonna kill you. They end up revealing that Gabby is alive.
They pull her out from somewhere. They take the little bird cage that was supposed to be her. They put it on the mantle, and then they put Jonathan's glasses on the skull because, surprise, surprise, that wasn't Vicky's head. That was Jonathan's, and he is dead now. Sienna's been losing it. This is just even more so. Gabby makes a note that there's still a present under the tree that hasn't been opened. So Vicky is like, oh.
Well, because Gabby made the comment to them. She was like, oh, like she didn't get to open my present. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then Vicky's like, oh, well, like, do you want to open it? And Sienna's like, yeah, I want to open it, you bitch. Not really, but
yeah, the vibe. Like, Vicky's like, do you want to open it yourself? And Sienna's like, yes, I do. And I kind of knew that this was going to happen before it did, but it still sucked watching it. Art then like breaks Sienna's hands and then cuts her ropes to get her hands free. And then she is able to open up the gift, and it's her sword from the second movie, and she's finally able to kind of stand a chance to fight them. And
But she ends up taking Vicky out pretty quickly by decapitation. Art is, of course, the harder one to take out because, you know, she's like in a struggle with him. And as she's struggling with Art and fighting against him, you just see Vicky's body like basically turning into this gaseous, toxic substance, and it ends up melting the floor, to which opens up to what I'm just gonna call a pit of hell. Gabby ends up like kind of falling and like gripping onto the edge. So Sienna has to make the choice to either deal the killing blow to Art or try to go rescue Gabby before she falls into the pit. And so she basically harms Art enough, and then she makes the choice to go save Gabby. And she ends up like holding the I called it a knife earlier, but it's like a sword knife thing. Because it's not overly long, but it's not overly short either. She ends up gripping it by
the blade.
And while Gabby is like gripping the hilt of it, and she tries to pull her up, but Gabby falls and she is lost. And, you know, Sienna turns around. Art has escaped. She's vowing, she's like, Gabby, I'll rescue you. Because at this point, Gabby's all she has left. Das Terrifier 3. I'll summarize my thoughts because each of my thoughts kind of bleed from one movie into the next, with, of course, the bulk of my thoughts being on Terrifier 3 because we just watched it. I heavily enjoy watching Terrifier 1 for a couple reasons. So one of the biggest gripes about Terrifier 1 is that people complain a lot about how there's not a lot of like substance there, like it really is just kind of gore with no character development, no storyline. I don't mind that. I don't, because one, that was probably intentional with the budget they had. Two, they probably didn't even know that this project would get as big as it is. So why are they going to invest in like this whole story and all these characters if they don't even know that it's getting picked up? Then, of course, after Terrifier 1, they saw the interest, they saw the potential, people picked up on it. So then you can introduce characters like Sienna and build that storyline. That's a big gripe that people have. It does not bother me. Like, not every movie has to be like Terrifier 2, where it's drawn out characters, big plot, a lot of things happening. Like, it's just fun. Well, I enjoy Terrifier 2 for its own merit. I think Terrifier 1, for me personally, has more rewatchability because, one, it's not over 2.5 hours long. Let's start there.
Yes.
And, like, I could just, like, how I watched it this last night, I put it on while, like, the rewatchability of that one is really out of all three is the highest, just because it's just a nice little movie that you can put. I say nice little movie, you know what I mean. It's like a good length movie that you can put on and it still be enjoyable and fun.
You can never please people, especially with filmmakers. They're like, I want to make this movie, but I don't have a budget. And like, yeah, there are some times where you cannot make the thing that you want to because you don't have a way to finance it. You don't have you don't have access to all of the equipment that you need, or even all of the people, you know? And so Terrifier 1 is a really great example of scaling your vision down to fit the needs and what you have to work with. I do agree that I do think that I probably would watch Terrifier 3 a lot because I'm like this fun. Is my Christmas movie now.
Yes.
But between the two of them, I definitely think that Terrifier 1 is also my easier rewatch than number 2. I know that people griped about how short Terrifier 1 was. Terrifier 2 is a little bit too long.
Right.
And I definitely can feel that because Terrifier 3 is shorter than Terrifier 2. It didn't feel like it was trying to sandwich in so much that the second one was.
Right.
And like, I get it. He was world building.
It was a lot, and that's really, like, that's my biggest gripe about Terrifier 2. I don't think it's a bad movie at all. I love Sienna's character. What Lauren Levere brings to that role is beautiful. I think she's, like, the best modern final girl that we've gotten.
So, the runtimes for Terrifier 1 is an hour 25, which I thought everybody wanted.
movie.
I thought everybody wanted 90-minute movies back, okay?
And you got a bitch, so
Hypocrites.
calm down.
Terrifier 2 is 2 hours and 18 minutes long, and then Terrifier 3 is 2 hours, 5 minutes.
Yeah, and you feel that difference. So, I don't have too many thoughts on Terrifier 2 other than, like, I can see the criticism for the too long of runtime, because I agree. And a lot of people said, okay, now we have all this lore and all these things you're introducing. Now we need the questions answered because you just info dumped a lot of this shit in Terrifier 2. So I had to put my Terrifier 3 notes on my phone because I was too lazy to get my iPad when I got home last night. So some things I want to note. Terrifier 3 is super fucking enjoyable. Like Liz said, it will definitely be a Christmas movie staple. It's like how I watch Gremlins every Christmas, because Gremlins is a Christmas movie, not a Halloween movie, and you people need to fucking stop. It's literally set on Christmas. Please stop calling it a Halloween movie. You're driving me nuts. Which of course, watch what you want when you want. Okay, but it is my Christmas movie, bitch. So this will be added into my repertoire. And the pacing of this one, I mean, like Liz said, there were like maybe a couple scenes that you're like, you could have trimmed that down.
It was so good, though.
Yeah, so good. The momentum was good. You kept it going. And obviously the shorter runtime helped that out a lot. It is a gore fest. It is not for the weak. There is a shower scene in this movie where a man gets a chainsaw up the butt and then through the balls, and it is a fucking lot, okay? And then we mentioned the scalping as well.
Yeah. That shower scene it's literally the gender bent version of Terrifier 1. It's the equal opportunity household of like, oh, we cut somebody in half. We cut up a lady, we're going to cut up a boy now.
Yeah. Because one of the things that people criticize a lot Damien Leone for, which I think is mostly in the horror community in general, not just a Damien Leone thing, is that a lot of the drawn out long kills were focused on women. So he did want to introduce more men, having longer kill scenes and being the center of that. And I think this is a thought that I have consistent through all, but obviously it came up for like a little Easter egg at the end of Terrifier 3. Watching All Hallows Eve actually really helped me contextualize a lot of things for Art the Clown, because it is the blueprint. Like, watching All Hallows Eve and then going back and watching Terrifier 1, I was like, oh, like, you were blueprinting that shit. Like, you can see the base being laid, and I thought that was really, really nice. There's an Easter egg at the end where it shows Art the Clown leaving, like, Sienna's house, getting onto a bus, and a lady's reading a Ninth Circle book, which the Ninth Circle is a short film that Damien Leone did in All Hallows Eve, and it was the first short film to introduce Art the Clown, which further caused me to have some theories, which I'll jump back into in a moment. Lauren Lavera, so when she was doing the red carpet for this movie at Fantastic Fest, which is where it debuted, she got to speak to an interviewer, and they were like, who's your inspiration going into this movie? And she was like, well, really kind of all the final girls, like, of course, Laurie Strode, you have Sydney from Scream, and, like, Ripley from Alien, you get those. She said, but a big one for me was actually Mia from the 2013 Evil Dead. And I saw that. The trauma that she brought to this role, same thing with Mia, and how, like, Mia in Evil Dead 2013, if you've seen that one, which if you haven't, go watch it right now, she overcame drug addiction. And she, basically, by the time the third act comes in this movie, like, you can tell she's done. She's, like, just ready to get this shit over with. And it's kind of the same vibe that Sienna had. Like, she is done fighting Art the Clown, which is further going to go into Terrifier 4. And like I said, the Deadite vibes, I think, also tied into that a little bit. So I was like, I love to see it. Oh, my God. I would also like to say that this was the first Terrifier movie where the kills, like, they're always kind of funny in a way just because of the way they do it. But, y'all, I was laughing in this theater last night. I was outright cackling, and I don't know why.
He's so expressive, and this has been the most expressive that Art the Clown has ever been. Yeah, I don't know if David was finally able to kind of, like, master how the makeup is manipulated by his facial expressions, or which muscles to move in his face to give him the most desired reaction for that. But I mean to tell you, just, it was so good. He perfectly captured menacing, cheerful, giddy, and then also fucking scary.
But back to my theory. So with the ninth circle, after I got home, I was kind of ruminating some things a bit. I decided to look up about Dante's Inferno and the ninth circle of hell, because all the circles symbolize like different kinds of crimes and violence and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, so he's got this thing called the ninth circle. Where's this going? Because if there's one thing you got to know about movies, is that they don't show you things on accident. I looked up the ninth circle, and the ninth circle in Dante's Inferno is reserved for those who have committed the greatest of sins, which is the betrayer of their loved ones, country, masters, and close friends. And I'm pretty sure the punishment for that is you get like frozen in ice or some sort. Basically, you can't move. This leads back to my theory for Terrifier 4, because apparently the rumor is that this one will be the last installment in the franchise. So obviously we're supposed to be wrapping up a ton of questions that we've had thus far. So if we're following the theory that people have that Art the Clown is Sienna and Jonathan's dad, I'm not saying I disagree or don't. I do question the timeline on that, but is it that the reason that Sienna is the chosen one to take him down, is because she is the one who was betrayed by her father? And, given that, like, maybe he did kill himself, obviously, but he was resurrected in this demon form, because they touched on in Terrifier 3 that it has to be someone who has gone through great suffering, and that allows them to enter the body, which is another Evil Dead reference, I believe. So it makes me wonder, is this the connection? Is this where we're headed for in Terrifier 4? Like I said, they're going to have to answer a lot of questions about that, just because the timeline would need to be explained. Because it seems like contextually Art the Clown has been kind of the Miles County clown for a while.
Yeah. Were those all your...
Yeah, I mean, that's
Okay.
basically, that's
Okay,
my theory going into Terrifier 4.
That leads me kind of into my thoughts about the franchise as a whole, because this might be a hot take, but the way that these films feel to me is the same way I feel about the Nightmare on Elm Street series. I understand if the fourth one is the last installment, but I think these movies could go on forever, because there's criticism that, these movies don't have any plot, whatever. I personally think that Art the Clown is just this eldritch horror that is, like, eternal and primordial and all of these things.
Almost like he's Pennywise, like he's
Yeah.
conjured up from people's fear or something.
Yeah. These films make you feel like watching like an 80s or 90s serialized horror franchise. I think if they tried to squeeze as many answers as they need to in a fourth one,
And that's my worry too.
yeah, I think
going
that's
into- yeah.
too much. I think we should take our time and make as many as they need to fully explain whatever they want to. I wanted Sienna to jump into that abyss so much. I just wanted to see her go into hell, go get Gabby, explore the underworld or whatever the fuck that it is, because Sienna's sword is down there now too.
Yep.
Gabby is technically related to Sienna's family by blood, but she's still not Sienna. So I don't know if the sword in and of itself retains its power through the material that it's made out of or through whoever wields the
Right.
sword.
And I think Terrifier 4 will pick up right where Terrifier 3 ended off. That's my theory. That's my thought, because I don't think we're going to have, like, where we had to explain, like, a 5-year gap at the beginning of this one and kind of be like, all right, this is where everybody's been, and that's how we're getting now into the events of this movie. I do hope and think that they will... Sienna might, like, take a little time to clean herself up a little bit, because she was beat the fuck up in this fight, but I do think the events are gonna happen. Could totally be wrong, because hey, I'm not Damien Leone, and I'm not seeing his brain and his inner workings and what he has planned, but it makes sense with the way the events are probably gonna go.
I need one of these movies to take place in whatever hell that he has in this world. That just needs to happen. I don't really remember this so much in the second one, but the religious imagery in Terrifier 3 is
Which,
so, like,
Christmas, but,
yeah, but it's not even like Christmas, like religious imagery. Like we had the Last Supper painting
True.
outside of the chapel that Sienna and Jonathan were talking about the demon, which was ironic, but a really good set placement for it. The dad kind of splayed out on the wall when he was disemboweled, like he was being held up by nails in his hands, and then the demon, before they go to Sienna's house, crafts her own like crown of thorns that she's wearing, and then she thrusts onto Sienna and is constantly talking about like, you're not their savior. I'm sure it started a little bit in Terrifier 2 whenever we came up with this chosen one narrative, but in Terrifier 3 it's just like really heavy-handed with it. And so I am personally pleading that Terrifier 4 takes place in hell at some point, because why would we be building up to it for like 2? And it looks so cool, like whenever the sword is being forged and you've got that weird mask angel looking thing. What is down there? I want to know.
I mean, bitch, you're planning shit about the Ninth Circle, so like,
Show me the Ninth Circle.
Show me the Ninth Circle, or wherever the fuck we're going.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of critiques of the films not having plots, or I've also seen that, that Leon is a little bit misogynistic in the way that he kind of writes the women in the Terrifier series, which I could see probably for Terrifier 1. But Terrifier 2 and 3, Sienna's a badass. Like, she does not go down without a fight. And as a lady, that's at least the one thing in horror movies that I appreciate when I see, is when the female character may still die, but as long as she goes down fighting, we just want smart female characters. And Sienna is that. She is very complex. But as for the no plot narratives, it's fine if you don't think a lot happens in the Terrifier franchise, but they are not plotless movies. No. They are not just happy-go-lucky, like, people getting off on watching, like, horror gore. Like, that's not... You can enjoy the goofy aspect of it, but there's a shitload that happens in Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 3. I think the people claiming there are no plot are wrong.
Oh, because they are. Like, you don't need a wide, expansive plot to be a plot. Sorry, it's... Get off your high horse about it. But I mean, yes, the summary of my thoughts is that the Terrifier franchise is very enjoyable, especially like if you're someone who just likes to watch gore and like these really epic, well done kill scenes, because they are well done. And now we're getting into like some meat of like this story. Come along for the ride. Come with us to see where this goes, because we'll be here whenever Terrifier 4 comes out.
All 3 films, what would you rate each of them?
Are we doing it out of 5 scale or out of 10 scale?
Whichever.
Terrifier 1 is a 4, because like I said, like, it's just enjoyable to watch, and the rewatchability. I don't go to these movies to watch some like high art form, y'all. Like I don't, okay? Like, I'm not rating this like I'm rating watching like whenever I finally get to watch The Whale, okay? Like
oh, I forgot you haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. On my watch list, definitely, now that I know it's on Prime, but like, you don't go to those kinds of movies for the same thing. So 4, because it's fun and you can see the potential there, the rewatchability, and it's a vibe. Terrifier 2, I will give it a 3.5, not because it's a bad movie, but the runtime really is just, it's too long and therefore not as rewatchable. But that's not a mean 3.5. It's just a realistic one. And then Terrifier 3, we get bumped back up to a 4, because Terrifier 1 and Terrifier 3 are on about the same, like, wavelength. Like, Terrifier 1's the grungy grindhouse, and then this one's, like, the... How would you describe it? Like pretty bright, like... But still almost like a retro. Like, there's almost like that retro kind of going on there.
It does. It feels like warm, soft bokeh, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
After seeing Terrifier 3, I so desperately want Damien Leone to direct and create an actual Christmas movie, because the set dressing in Terrifier 3 was so good. Yeah. If it wasn't obviously the world that it is with Art the Clown, I would personally love to take up residence there because it's so beautiful. You were asking what the vibe of it was.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Oh,
When you said the bokeh.
It is so immersed in that holly jolly Christmas vibe meets 80s horror camp, you know? It kind of feels like the live action version of The Nightmare Before Christmas because it had that holiday crossover.
True. As far as it being controversial, I think each movie has been controversial in its own right. Like, Terrifier 1 was controversial and disturbing just because it's like, holy shit, that's a lot. Like, that's a lot going on there. And then Terrifier 2 with the bedroom scene, a lot of people had, like, very visceral reactions and big opinions about that. And then, obviously, with the Terrifier 3, now the big worry was about kids, which I think overall they handle well. Disturbing, controversial, but highly enjoyable.
I fall a little bit opposite from that. Is I really enjoy Terrifier 1. Rewatchability definitely more than Terrifier 2, but I think I would rank Terrifier 1 as 3 out of 5 as a whole, like, package. Budget doesn't dictate rating.
Yep.
But I think I'm a little bit more critical because I do look at things from a production standpoint. And then for Terrifier 2, I think that's a 3.5. Is we're upping it a little bit more. The production is obviously much better. The story, even as convoluted as it is, it does do a lot. And then Terrifier 3, I put as a 4 out of 5 too. The vibes, immaculate. I am someone who absolutely loves Christmas movies, so my absolute joy watching this was through the roof.
Right. Yeah, and it was just so fun. The kills were fun. I was actively laughing at them. Yeah, go out, and if you haven't watched Terrifier 1 and 2, go catch up, and then obviously go support this independent film in theaters, because this is actually getting a pretty big theatrical run, considering. Go support it. And then that way you could be all caught up for Terrifier 4, whenever that comes out. I'm going to guess at least 2 years. That's basically it for me on Terrifier. I want to see if my theories end up being correct or not.
That was our episode on Terrifier 1, 2, and 3. It was a really long episode, so if you stuck with us throughout all of it,
thank you.
We appreciate you. We hope you enjoyed listening to our thoughts and opinions. If you enjoyed it even more, feel free to find us on all of the social medias.
We have a link tree down in the description. Please give a rate and review. Let us know what you thought of Terrifier as well, and if you have seen the new one, let us know what you think of that one. And thank you for coming along for this extra long episode today.
Right, and we hope to see you in the next one.
Bye.
You'll find superstition a contagious thing. Some people let it get the better of them. I don't think you will.
No.